Okay. Okay. Well, here's a very special Christmas wish for y'all. May true love find you in the end.
At some point, we all have to ask ourselves, what is the key to great art? Is it the perspective, the story, the craft, or what about the emotion? What if I said it was none of these, although they all are certainly important? What is most important, though, is sympathy, compassion, or more broadly and precisely, love. Not love of the art nor its techniques, but love of the other, whether that be me, you, your partner, nature, or even a stranger. Since starting this channel, I have seen countless comments echoing the same sentiment. Cinema is dead, which is a phrase that I've heard uttered a lot about art in general in the last few years. The death most people are talking about when they utter this phrase is that of the digital age, of TikTok, the rise of streaming, dying theaters and galleries, AI, NFTs, and the list goes on. But art is not the end-all be-all. So if cinema is dying, it is only a symptom of a much larger societal death. I don't think I'm alone in saying that our modern society is struggling to love. We talk a lot about love, especially self-love, but is that even love? Do we even know what we're talking about? Before we embark on our walk together, I want to briefly admit my own shortcomings, which felt immense while writing this script. I am nowhere near as experienced or as intelligent as those who have thought about love for decades, for centuries really. This essay actually originally started as an exploration of Byung-Chul Han's book, The Agony of Eros, but eventually morphed into a discussion of film's current crisis using his book as a guiding light. All I can pray for from our few minutes together is that my perspective and ideas, while limited by time, experience, and knowledge, will help to start you and your work on a journey towards an understanding of love. I personally don't believe this journey ever ends, at least not in this life, so my only hope is for this video to be a part or a step of your larger journey. We will stay out of the endless weeds of definitions and semantics as much as possible by risking an oversimplification. Eros is traditionally identified with sexual romantic love. It is the domain of Cupid and lovers, not of friends or the world or nature. I will be adopting the general form of love from here on out, instead of the more specific Eros, in an attempt to broaden the scope and implications of Han's deductions and reasonings. For if we cannot truly love the one we say we do in an intimate setting, then how could we ever hope to love a friend or even a passerby in a more general, public way? Han's basic definition of Eros is being able not to be able, or more precisely, the negativity of otherness, that is, the atopia of the other, which eludes all ability, is constitutive of erotic experience. There are three key pieces of this definition: negativity, atopia, and ability. Firstly, negativity here is that which is outside of ourselves. It is not bad, but rather good, as positivity only feeds the market and our egos. Secondly, atopia further reinforces this idea, and to the best of my knowledge is taken to be placelessness or externality. Finally, the clarification here about ability is a direct refutation of our currently market-driven, agreeable view of romance. True romance defies our skills, talents, and choices. We have no control over the beloved. We cannot make them love us or change them, nor can we ever know who they truly are. Not to mention our own inability to control whom we love or select from a list the best possible mate. To simplify this definition then, Eros, or love, lies beyond our control and requires distance, externality, and a knowability. Or to go back to his first definition, it is simply being able not to be able. But how does this connect to art? In my view, art is all about exteriority or otherness. The best art allows us to step outside of ourselves and approach another person, their views, fears, loves, and idiosyncrasies. We can never step into their shoes, but we can view them in close-up for as long as we want. Maybe in the imprints they leave in the mud, their color, their wear, or the person's footprint in the soul, we can glimpse a little of who they belong to. Art and love then share the same core element: otherness. Love is the driving force beneath art, beneath everything really, and art is an attempt to understand or to order this force. This naturally brings us back to the death of cinema, which is perfectly captured in Han's words. The contemporary crisis in literature and the arts stems from a crisis of fantasy, the disappearance of the other. This is the agony of Eros. Without the other, without things beyond our control, there can be no love, and without love, there is nothing for art to struggle with, to strive for, or to search after. But how do we know that the other has disappeared? Can we be certain that this is the root of our problems? Han primarily discusses larger societal symptoms and signs, from our obsession with health, the prevalence of pornography, our achievement-oriented society, and modern love's lack of transgression. But we are focused in on cinema, so we'll have to look back at the symptoms everyone seems to have on their mind right now for this specific art form. We're all very well aware of the current diagnosis surrounding the symptoms of IP, short-form content, streaming services, social media, general brandification, and on and on. It's practically all noise at this point because a solution or a root cause have yet to be hit upon and hammered home. The closest discussion I've seen about the roots and solutions to these symptoms is contained within Patrick H. Willems' video essay, Who Killed Cinema? A Murder Mystery. He summarizes modern cinema's problem as this.
The idea that has driven nearly every decision made by every person and entity involved here, other than, of course, pure greed and capitalism, is the elimination of risk.
Or put into the words we are using, aversion to the negativity of otherness. This aversion to risk and otherness then creates an achievement-oriented system of capital seeking, which leads to IP, streaming, social media, etc., etc. That being said, there is a problem with Willems' diagnosis. We may see the same symptoms and diagnose the same root cause, albeit in different terms, but the way he and many others arrive there significantly limit their conclusions and proposed steps forward. What most people are defending and trying to cure is cinema, which is almost exclusively defined as feature-length narrative movies. This is a severe limitation as it sticks us in the past, in a place that technology has moved us beyond. Not to mention, it ignores form and completely eliminates short films and experimental works from the conversation. I personally have recently become an advocate for viewing movies as more of a visual medium or language. It is not defined by narrative, length, stars, or the theatrical experience, and by limiting our definition to these traits, we ignore the possibilities of shorter form content, the mass distribution of YouTube and streaming, and the deep connection between video art and narrative cinema. By viewing it as a language or medium, we acknowledge that it is shifting and changing, and that like written languages, there are novels, poems, short stories, handwritten notes, and all sorts of boring, banal, everyday communication. It would feel dumb to say that the novel is the only true form of written language, and imagine how much worse off we would be if we believed so. If we don't acknowledge that cinema can be TikToks, YouTube videos, video art, short films, and of course narrative cinema, we will continue spinning in place, failing to move forward, and we will also fail to solve the root problem. By not acknowledging that short-form content is cinema, that streaming is here to stay in some shape or form, and that theaters will become a more niche experience, we cannot discuss and police these phenomena. We are currently leaving these discussions up to society, which is more legislative than creative, and true creatives can bring to the table that view of otherness that is essential to shaping how we consume and create. We are currently experiencing growing pains, and as with any advancement, this brings with it new forms of exploitation and devaluation. But the solution does not lie in ignoring the root cause, or narrowing the definition out of comfort, because then we are simply refusing to leave the womb. We will never walk, run, talk, or love as we could if we allowed ourselves to simply be born. In other words, we are personally guilty of the same crime we cast onto big studios, corporations, stars, and platforms. We are terrified of the other, of something beyond our control and understanding. But love does not belong to the past, but rather it remains faithful to what is to come. Now, I don't say any of this as a condemnation, merely as an observation, because to truly love, to truly fight is hard. In fact, it is nearly impossible. As James Baldwin says,
love has never been a popular movement, and no one's ever wanted really to be free. The world is held together, really it is held together, by the love and the passion of very few people.
Any discussion of problems is incomplete without a proposed solution. So my current quest, a quest that I think we're all called to as artists, is then to become one of those who hold the world together through our love. To start on this journey, we need to first finish our discussion of film and art by looking at some general guidance and the solution it may bring to ensure that we, as artists, are active and precise when it comes to our work. The solution to art's current struggle is actually rather simple. We just have to hold in our mind and our hearts the struggle for the other, and the current problems it faces from the market, from individualism, and from all of their children, whether that be hustle culture, contentification, or pornography. Once we have this struggle set in the forefront of our minds, we have to hold new developments to this standard, and work to not silence or separate them off from ourselves and our work. Instead, we must find ways to incorporate the other into them. This will not be easy, but each failure will bring us closer to success. To wrap up our discussion of movies and art, if we simply acknowledge love's requirement of the other and the ways it is currently being assailed in the movies, seek to adapt new technologies to the other, and seek others before ourselves, we will have all the pieces needed to continue to adapt and fight for the future for love. But just as Baldwin points out, love has never been popular, and the struggle will always remain, only its form will change. So we will always have to remain vigilant and watchful for new developments. Before concluding this brief collection of thoughts and hopes, I want to broaden our discussion a little. I've mentioned larger societal issues a few times throughout this essay, and now comes the time to acknowledge that art itself can be an escape from negativity, from the people and the world around us. The saving of cinema by learning to love and search for love is not the end, but more than likely a product of our own learning to love in reality. Out here, we must face many more diversions, obstacles, and pain. Out here, suffering and loss become very real. It is easy to love when we have a screen or a canvas or a page to mediate and contain it, but in daily life, there is no container. To truly love is to ask for trouble, to ask for disaster, to miss people forever, and to never be the same. Now, if we return to Han's book, we can find another meaning in its title. The agony of Eros can be taken not just to be the loss of the other, but it can also be the extreme highs and lows of true love that we shield ourselves from, and which we must come to accept. The greatest art there is the art of life, and only by accepting negativity, risk, pain, beauty, loss, feral joy, and our own smallness can we become full people capable of true love. Finally, I would like to end where we began, with Daniel Johnston and a perpetual wish, hope, prayer, and reminder for all of us.
But how can it recognize you unless you step out into the light, the light? Don't be sad, I know you will. But don't give up until true love will find you in the end. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you.